And Mayor, I shared that there's something in the attorney's office at this point in time from Mr. Sowell Thank you, Ken.
Okay, welcome to the Athens Justice and Memory Project meeting. This is our the 24th meeting. Basically, we have been working on avenues of atonement for the last 24 months. And this is the team that Mayor Gertz put together to do this. So we're happy about the work and we create avenues. So with that, we want to go ahead and have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, I'm first on the agenda to talk about affordable housing. I am on a call next week with, I would say contractor, that is going to be involved in selection of different agencies who are going to be looking at putting in, I guess, RFP for managing the money for the affordable housing and setting up the guidelines for the housing. So I forgot the name of the committee.
So just in terms of process, Ms. Hattie,
Okay,
so when we allocated the funds, that basically charges kind of the manager to kind of put that together.
okay,
Now, you know, what probably would be good is just to sort of be the promotional tool to let folks know, hey, there's this opportunity out there.
Mhm.
But probably the combination of housing and community development, I would guess, Nikki,
That's right.
would sort of craft that and it'll be up on the website,
Yeah.
but just to let folks know that it's there. And I don't know if there's a timeline for that.
So we had to do the eviction prevention, so everything's been kind of pushed out. So we're thinking like June, I think May or June right now, before the RFP goes out. Could be wrong on that date. As I said, I will have HCD come here and speak to the RFP and a timeline when we get close to that. But right now, they're kind of deep in dealing with the eviction prevention stuff. And as it relates to the management of the money, let me say this, the management of the money will live with our housing community development department.
okay.
They're federal dollars, ARPA dollars. So staff will be managing the money. So I didn't know what she meant by that.
And I think just probably the kind of appropriate thing to happen is when they're getting ready to announce that, just to provide an update
Right,
for this group. And so, you know, we kind of know, hey, you know, it's going to pop live on June 1st. The deadline for submission is going to be July 1st. And the award will be August 1st or whatever that timeline will be.
That's right.
but what's going to be different too about this is that this committee is going to have small meetings in the community just to highlight, just to further communicate
The
the
promotional,
promotional piece of it
sure.
to ensure that that people who would normally get communication through the paper, newspaper, or online could hear it.
Okay.
So
So,
if you want to make a request, say for like a one pager, that might be like a helpful tool for them to carry around.
Yes, I promised that to Ms. Hattie already.
promise that to me, so once he gets that to me and all of us can get together and decide what area of of Athens that we're gonna break up and start communication in different places. So that's what we have decided to do to ensure that the communications get completely out to everybody.
Right, and then obviously ultimately when the program's live, you know, we want all eligible folks to know that, hey, this cat is out here for
Right.
home repair down payment assistance.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, it's just a matter of when our folks are able to kind of get to the work. Right.
So once we get that one pager, we'll decide in one of our meetings how we're gonna start, and we're gonna start contacting people, try to go on social media, radio stations, small groups, churches, wherever people are in groups, and we're gonna try to get
That's great.
with that one pager.
Absolutely.
Okay, any questions or any more clarity on that? So we're talking about, the timeline for that. You said sometime mid-June? Nikki?
May, June, we're kind of in transition right now too. So, we just hired our new housing community development director. Roderick's first day is actually today. So, Andrew's been working on getting the eviction prevention stuff out. I will kind of defer to Roderick. I will work with him. I'll make sure that we bring him here on the timeline. But as I understand it right now, the timeline's May or June when the RFP actually goes out, which would mean before it goes out, that we would give AJP the courtesy of hearing what the RFP is going to say. So, and then you'll have that one pager at that time. So
And the RFP's calling for what? What's for an agency or a group to do what?
For rehab, home owner rehab.
Well, no, I understand the program, but the RFP is usually for like we had an RFP for the signage that never went through.
Right.
Usually it's like a big project that you're bidding for. In this case, it's individual homeowners who submit to an RFP.
See, the project manager.
A project manager, got it. That's what I thought. Yeah, so project manager of overseeing the funds and how they're distributed and.
Not necessarily, right? So it would be nonprofit organizations
Okay.
or for-profit organizations who are able to manage rehab programs, which essentially is project manager. There are organizations who can actually do this work itself.
For the rehabbing actual.
They'll be doing the intake of, hey, Jen wants to rehab 101 Jones Street, so you have to do a qualification,
Got it.
go through that entire process. Theoretically, they would also be doing the contracting as well. So they would do the specs of the home, an estimate of the home, and then bid out the contract
Great.
to do the work.
Thank you.
And for down payment assistance, something similar.
That's it, yeah, okay, got it. And that would be two separate RFPs or one agency or one group that does both those?
The RFP will speak to both. So if there is a group out there who has the capacity to do both, they could submit a proposal to do both. Because they will be also evaluated on the capacity of the organization to do the work.
Gotcha. And it's just beyond the scope of our current staff to do these two projects, just beyond the scope of like.
Yeah.
it's-
And in fact, Nikki referenced the eviction work. I mean, that was a rescue job by our staff. We're a kind of non-respondent provider.
Yeah.
We had that work. So generally that's something that we work with a nonprofit or in some cases for-profit partner on.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That makes sense, thank you.
I may be a little behind on it, but the justice and memory, we're not going to be involved with this affordable housing, right? You all already have it set up with different groups of people.
We're gonna
That's my
be,
understanding.
the one pager that that he's going to create for us, put down on paper, for communication, for clarity, we're gonna take that. And we want to have meetings in the community, just for people to understand. That people don't normally get the paper or normally listen to social media, we're just gonna have just information out there, so
I
we're.
understand that, but what I'm saying is, you all already have a group of people, not the justice and memory group. You have other people that are going to be doing it.
That's what
Yeah.
Nikki said. We'll be fine.
Right. So,
That's us, we're not gonna be doing.
No. No, you don't have to have a hammer or.
as far as talking to people and things like that, so we're not involved with the money or anything like that. So the justice and memory team, what is it gonna be? It'll be doing other things. I know we're trying to do the learn row and things like that. Is that what we're gonna continue to be doing? Or
Well, we're gonna, like I said, the only connection we're gonna have is to understand, once the RFP goes out and the agencies are selected and everything's out, we're just gonna get the one pager and just talk to people and make sure they understand where to go and when it's open and when it's gonna close and the qualifications for filling out the application. That's all that we have to do with it. Does that help?
yes,
Okay. Any other questions about the affordable housing piece?
Excited to see it hit the ground.
Yes, finally, and people, hopefully they're waiting on it. I've had a couple of calls at home already
Hmm.
asking about this, because
That's
people
good.
are wanting it, so. Okay, Nick, if you would talk about the status of the right of way.
So as I was noting earlier, the attorney has completed the work, to my understanding, and submitted it to our attorney's office. So we're waiting for our attorney's office to review it. Hopefully next month we'll be able to come before the AJMP, kind of talk about exactly what those findings are. But first, we just want to make sure everybody understands it's going to go to the mayor and commission before anybody hears anything.
Okay,
That's just standard.
In a private session.
That's right.
okay, farm session.
Executive.
Right.
That's right.
So they'll do it first. And then
That's fine, as long as it goes.
And I'm hopeful, I'm always hopeful, but I'm more hopeful now that we'll be talking about this next month.
thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
And as it relates to the renaming of South Finley, so, my understanding is y'all were working with our GIO to determine ownership along the street. No, is that incorrect? Because we,
Renaming of the street. Renaming of the street, we were looking at, a system just to rename it. We have some system, and I'm not sure what that system is, but where we can not have to do that. We can just go in and make recommendations following this procedure to rename.
So that there are two routes in the ordinance. One is to get a proportion of property owners. The other is for the mayor commission to designate a street name.
okay,
Kind of, under our autonomy.
Okay.
And so I know you've talked to some commissioners.
I've talked to some submissions about this already.
Okay. So you know more about it than me.
No, I'm just saying I have already
Okay.
talked with some commissioners about it, and I'm gonna continue to talk with some commissioners about it up until we, till it comes up to go, and to supporting mayor commission and vote on it. Hopefully in the second quarter.
So procedurally, would we have to make a recommendation that this come as an agenda item for you, or can you just do it? Because that's on the agenda for a vote, right?
So theoretically, you can do it anyhow. I mean, I think the groundwork is helpful to call commissioners and say, hey,
Yeah.
here's what we're looking for, as a kind of ceremonial identifier of this is an important neighborhood that we want to highlight.
I'm just saying to get it on a voting agenda, do you just put it on when you feel it's ready, or does this JMP need to make a recommendation to you to put it on
I
a,
mean, ultimately, that is helpful.
if we make a
If
recommendation?
there's a formal report from.
Okay, so we might want to create a report about what, the justification, general support.
The application that was part of the.
Yep, but minus
Yep.
the property owner signatures, because we're going the other route.
Exactly.
So we would create something to submit to the mayor, we would vote on it in here, submit it to you, and then you would take that under advisement as a possible agenda.
That's
item.
right.
We'll get together, Jim.
Yeah, we'll do a little one page.
And my staff recommendation would be that the timing of it aligned with your
Okay.
conversations.
Would you feel there's a critical mass of support? Yeah,
Okay,
we can make that up real.
okay, I think it'll be the second quarter. Maybe in April.
So we'll get that on the agenda here, once we feel it's time to make a recommendation to you, and then you can go from there.
We'll probably go ahead and get, recommendation next, by the next.
Okay, you keep me posted.
Good. And if you don't mind, and I really apologize, I've got to go to a 5:30 commission meeting
Yep.
Downtown. And this is a little bit of overlap between the kind of right-of-way question and the mosaic and historical markers item, which I know y'all are going to talk about in a little bit. I've been thinking about the ideal approach to kind of the paired question of, the artistic marker and what I guess we call the interpretive signage. That's really just got the historical record involved. What would be great, what would be ideal, in fact, is, we've got effectively a mock-up of the mosaic. And so if the recommendation is something along the lines of what we've seen already, to package that with what you want the text in the signage to be. And I think that creates a very open window of clarity for everybody, including folks who might have been critical of this effort. And they can see, we're not talking any crazy talk. we're just talking, just facts, Sam, like I said. And if we come up with the text that would be on that signage, it'd be good if that's in the public view for everybody to see and read and understand and not be spooked by.
Let's have that on there.
I will make that recommendation. I wanted to bring that thought to the group today, just because, you know, I hear from everybody. I hear from people who, you know, understand the vision that we have here and recognize the value of the work. I hear from people who are just confused and don't know. And then I sometimes hear from people who are scared or weirded out. And I always like to unscare people and get people away from being weirded out. And so, you know, the clarity of saying sign number one is going to say, you know, in 1903, the neighborhood that came to be known as Lindentown was established with the first construction of homes on all, you know, those kinds of things. I think it'll be good to have that script, that text out there in the public.
So quick thing though, that was originally part of the RFP to hire a firm who has expertise in creating that text, because we don't really have that in this committee. I mean, so that was explicitly, and we might want to pull that RFP up that exists. It was specifically for them to people who have expertise in drafting text and narratives on historical signage. You don't just make, you know, you don't just kind of grab that. I mean, we could perhaps give a little bit of like each theme, but
We can basically do what you're saying, or we can get some help from one of the, a professor of history or something at UGA.
But maybe we can connect another time, but drafting the actual text on the sign originally was conceived as part of the RFP for interpretive signage.
And so it makes me wonder, you know, if we want to split that work into a couple of segments, sort of the static language and then kind of the visual piece to follow behind, you know, as a separate chunk of work. So it might be something for y'all to talk about, but just even people knowing these words in this order are what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's almost the chicken or the egg, right? Because it's almost like, you know, if I'm gonna bid on a job to pick the signage, you kind of need to know what it says.
We should revisit the RFP that was drafted. Because it includes a whole step-by-step process for a firm to come in who has experience writing historical narratives on signs to work with that. So rather than sort of us coming up with that in this committee, maybe there's some kind of like you said, in between, we could say,
We can do it in between.
Yeah. because there's people that would.
Maybe there's some two-phase process
Yeah,
or something.
exactly. That would be perfect.
Yeah, I've got to run, but thank you all.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for coming here. We can do that. We can give us like.
Yeah. The general themes.
General
Yes.
thing, the community name. Stuff like, you know, just information that we know, just to have an idea of what the signage
Yes.
will contain.
As I'm thinking about it, because if we put the RFP out there, we're kind of looking for a historian and a sign maker.
No, I mean, again, I think, no, there are firms who do this. I mean, like the Auburn Avenue project in Atlanta, there are firms who are able to understand the historical, cultural situation that we're trying to provide historical markers for, so they can understand the content that just needs to be captured, the imagery that might be appropriate, and they can work with both the text and the visuals to make it compelling, effective. And whereas like, if we just sit down and say, we want to say this paragraph, that's not the same as these interpretive graphic design firms that will bring, so they know how to write the narrative text and capture the history, because what you write on that sign captures history. So we've got to make sure it's really, really crafted by somebody who has experience capturing history on signs.
Sure.
And then these interpretive graphic design firms, like the one who did Auburn Avenue, they often contract the making of the signs and then the installing of the signs. So we were seeking an expert who could
Do both, really.
well, mostly, yes, both, but ideally you really wanted that first piece, like how do we capture this history
And
in
then,
both text and imagery on these signs? We need an expert firm who does this public, you know, they do the interpretive signage all the time. That was the goal, now or the ideal. Now, if we need to recalibrate what we do, and we need to give a little more specificity to what each sign might capture in general, but let it.
Didn't we do that? Didn't we say like sign one was gonna have this theme, or maybe?
We had
talked about-
very general themes.
we had general, we can do that.
We already
We
have
have
that.
that on that general.
So, yeah, you know, I thought maybe I'm mistaken. I thought there was like already like this history of Town already.
Sure, but how do you put that on one sign and, you know?
I don't
50
think you put it
words?
on one sign.
Well, yeah, or 3 signs,
Right,
you know, I
right.
mean, yeah, we were hoping to have an expert
We were
firm.
hoping to have an expert to do that, because we're not experts on what should go on signage, because it's gonna be there for.
Ever, I hope they were.
Yeah, I guess, so just to be clear, I'm saying like, I want to be able to give whoever is going to submit
Bid on these.
some direction.
Okay.
So like, if we could attach to the RFP, hey, here's some history, so they can have.
Oh, that's in there,
Yeah,
that's
it's
all
in there.
in there,
Okay,
yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's in there, and there was actually a step-by-step process that included sharing all the current information and history, and then having them do some work, and then propose signage, get public feedback. I mean, I think we should revisit it. I mean,
Yeah,
it
We should,
was,
you're right.
it definitely had a whole step-by-step process to get some experts involved, but then have them bring the community in, get feedback from mayor and commission. Now, if for some reason we need to dial that back, we can, but,
I think we need to dial it back, bring it back to one of these meetings. I don't know when it's appropriate to bring it back, but from what I hear from the mayor,
So look, next month,
next month,
we're going to kind of know, right?
yeah.
yeah, if there's even science way.
That's right.
That's what.
Well, let's just say, I mean, we've been talking about it. I feel pretty good about it. So, you know, I'm glad we're talking about it. So we all agree that there's an RFP that's going to go out and solicit someone to help us craft what's going to be on the signs. We're going to signal that there should be themes. We're going to signal with attachments that here's the history.
Yes.
And then we're also going to say in the RFP that there should be some sort of level of public engagement.
Yep.
So what I'm thinking right now, to the mayor's point is, you know, if I'm the outside looking in, when do I know what those signs are going to say?
If you're the public, after we hired the firm and who has,
And they make a recommendation.
they would mock up and then they would go get public input
So
and mayor and commission input.
that's right. So let's just say when do we go to the mayor commission to show them a draft of what's going to happen?
I
What we
know
are
there was a
proposing.
timeline. I don't think I get on internet in this place for some reason.
Well,
So there is a
generally-
timeline. I mean, so it's hire the firm. They are given the materials and the history that we have that they bring, that they look at that. I think you might have even proposed some workshops on the front end to see what people want to do, and then they will propose some signage with text and imagery. And then they will get feedback from mayor and commission and presumably the public, or at least it might have been more directed to JMP and the mayor and commission, but we could look at the RFP that was drafted. Then they would make adjustments to those signage and to look at the final signs with the text and the imagery, the 3 signs were
That makes
approved.
sense.
So it's definitely multiple steps.
So you are saying it's gonna be more than one sign?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
3 signs.
Mr. Mark is supposed to be 3 down Finley.
Oh, really?
3 signs.
We had talked about it, but we're gonna revisit at the next meeting.
And yeah, everything can be revisited for now.
Oh,
No, that's good.
The approved concept has the 3 signs and then the mosaic installation, and that's been approved by mayor and commission.
We can review that, next meeting, because we're gonna talk about the right of way hopefully next meeting anyway.
More about that,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So we need to go ahead and do both of
I
them.
would say we should start thinking about it, right? Like, or maybe we should start sending the RFP around again.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yes.
So everybody's more familiar with it. When we come in here next month.
I'll try to find it. Maybe I'll follow up with you like in the next couple of days, maybe we can locate all that.
I'm sorry, sales guy, it's like.
I know exactly. And
I'll be able
I
to-
will search my email
Okay.
and I feel like we were 95% of the way to an RFP and it was quite extensive. It had the history, it had the timeline,
It was,
it was multiple
very
pages. It was probably 6 or 7 pages. So let's
Yeah.
locate that
Yep,
RFP.
I think it'd be good for us to talk about next month, if that's okay.
And it was for the signage. We separated the signage from the mosaic at that point. So
because we want it to be quality. I mean, everything that we've done, we want it to be quality.
it really requires firms who understand capturing history, design.
And not just us putting down.
No, I think.
We don't do that. We wouldn't do that.
And no updates on the mosaic, but we're just waiting.
Well, that's all on the agenda. Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
If I could, Ms. Hay, yeah, so again, I just want to be clear on what we talked about at the very beginning as it relates to quorum. So next month, we're gonna try to have 5 members here because that's the quorum for 9. If we have 5, we can actually make a vote,
Okay,
right? So if we vote, then we're gonna vote to reduce quorum.
right, yeah, we're gonna vote to reduce quorum next month.
Okay,
We will
All right.
have the, number of people here that needs to be
Okay.
here to vote.
good. And the last thing update I have is, we just hired a new inclusion officer,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That post
Yeah.
fire, but-
Dr. Remy Epps.
Okay.
Dr. Remy Epps,
He,
PPS.
exciting.
Starts on the 27th. So she will be with us next month.
Yes,
Very
yay.
She comes to us from North Carolina. Most recently, she worked with the city of Reedsville, but she also worked with the city of Greensboro as well.
Great.
So she's got a lot of local government experience. I think that you guys will enjoy Dr. Epps. She's got a lot of energy. So I'm looking forward to having her here.
I'm sure, I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
it too.
that's great.
Yeah,
Great,
it is. It
great.
is. So, yes, that's all I have.
So she's gonna be here the next meeting.
As far as I know, yes, ma'am. So she starts on the 27th, so yeah, I would say yes.
Okay, so well, got someone hired, that is great.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, because we needed that,
Fantastic.
we needed that. We needed that, so. Okay, is there anything else?
Listen. It's awesome.
Is there,
Sure.
is there anything else that, we need to be doing? I told you last week, I think the last time that we have the Classic Center board has voted to allow the History Center startup on their campus in 2024. So that's tremendous accomplishment.
Yeah.
That's great.
Really thank them for what they have done. I mean, that really is a good thing. So we're gonna move forward in that direction.
Is there something you could show us that at one of the future meetings that what's going to be depicted at the Classic Center so we can kind of all see it?
No, you can just use your imagination.
Okay, okay.
So it's in some currently built space that they're gonna allocate, or the new space they're building?
Space.
Oh, it's the new.
The new space, okay. So they formally voted to dedicate part of that space
To dedicate a space
in the Classic Center in
on
20.
the campus.
Okay, wow.
So
That's exciting.
it's exciting.
I would love to hear how they're about this.
It's very, very exciting. And it seems like we all coming together and trying to get the work done here. We should be very proud of the accomplishment that we have made thus far. Should be very proud. I'll continue to work hard and hopefully we continue to go in the direction that we are going in. But thank you all for all of what you have done. Appreciate it, and we're gonna move forward. And with that, I'm gonna move the close the meeting if no one has anything else. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Addie.
All right.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Cameron.
Is the Classic Center completely private then? Like they're